Okay, good morning, everybody. Hopefully, everybody's had an opportunity to join there on our link, and you're all very welcome to the second edition of 2024 of our quarterly Fireside Chats. This is something that we started last year, further to feedback from all of our members who wanted an opportunity to get to know our patron companies and also the people behind them. And we are joined today, further to Martin Dempsey of Sanofi in the first quarter, by Della O'Donoghue, the Managing Director of EMCO, a relatively new patron who joined us in 2023. So you're very welcome, Della, this morning.
Merci m'inviter, Anya. Thank you very much. Et merci à Léa qui nous aide aujourd'hui.
Now, Della, this is a fireside chat. Normally, it's very easy in the winter time to picture kind of us beside a roaring fireside with a glass of red wine or a whiskey. In the summer, I tend to picture a fire pit beside a beach with a few cocktails. But today, I'm not really sure where I want to be.
It's true. It's not that difficult for those of us who are in Ireland at the moment to imagine a fire. I think a lot of us have been close to one more than we would have expected this summer.
Now, Della, just normally I'd like to get started by maybe giving everybody an opportunity and give you an opportunity to describe EMCO, what the company are, who you are, what you do, and how you've evolved over your time.
Thanks, Anya. Well, EMCO is a strategic design and project management company. On a société irlandaise au début, so we're an Irish company, which is around for close on 25 years now, and founded by two Irish women. And in the early days, it was very much focused on capital development, something I think that a lot of the Friends of Ireland Chamber of Commerce companies will have some kind of background in, so infrastructure and capital development and the kind of project management and direction of those projects. So that's where it started out, I suppose, at a time where public-private partnerships and so on were just beginning to come into the market in Ireland and, you know, be explored as different kind of vehicles to deliver infrastructure projects. So I joined in 2001, and in those early days, those are the kind of projects I would have been involved in, and that was my role. I was project manager and then project director with a number of people working under me. And I suppose the difference, or if you like, the USP that the company had in those days was that it was very much a 360. So from the very beginning, the working with stakeholders, whether those were community, the community, the public sector, and the private sector, really was kind of a key part of the delivery, as well as kind of carrying out the roles you'd normally expect of project managers in terms of managing design teams and so on and so forth, and construction teams. The company has evolved significantly. I suppose the world has changed dramatically. We've been through so much. Those of us of a certain vintage have been through the crashes, the dot-com boom, you know, everything right through COVID and so on. And so as Ireland has changed, the company has evolved. And, you know, in the noughties, in the later noughties, it began to get into more service design, because I suppose that's where we could see, you know, you're putting infrastructure in place that is really intended to bring about change, whether change in terms of how healthcare is delivered, or change in how people access their community, you know, by way of active travel, or how, you know, the rejuvenation of a part of the city. So that it's all well and good to put the infrastructure, but then there's a lot behind that. You know, how do you bring people on that journey of change and maybe delivering services in a new environment, or, you know, just the ever evolving nature of cities and places, you know, when they are being developed. You know, sometimes you start out with one vision, and then as an area is developed, it changes, you know, and the area changes, the community changes, the need changes. So the vision can in fact shift and change. So the company shifted with that, with those sort of, with the evolution of the country, really. And so at the heart of it, I suppose, though, there remains in EMCO a really strong interest in people and places. there's a really strong motivation around creating vibrant communities, sustainable, healthy places to live and work, and ways of living and working. And that driver has been the same. So now our services would focus more on public engagement and consultation. We have a design and visual communications team in-house, because the importance of communication is just communication is everything. It always has been an integral part of what we've done. But how we're saying things, how we're reaching out. We still have a core of change and project management service. And we also have, as I suppose, as we've moved into a more evidence-based society, that research and policy development has been data-driven. And so we have that type of skill set in-house. And then we work across sustainability, health, placemaking, and so it's a very interesting area to work in. And we have a very diverse team of people with different skill sets that come together to work on those projects for our clients.
That sounds so interesting, and it's amazing the kind of the hidden world that really opens up to me as I'm listening to the things I wouldn't have considered. And it's a real comprehensive service, I suppose. And the question that strikes me as you're talking through it, is this standard now, or it's really new and innovative? Are you maybe the only people in this space? What does that look like?
I think there's, the individual pieces that we do, certainly there's other people doing those pieces. And but I think what is unusual about MCO is that there's a skill set in-house that can allow for thinking and planning, from a very early concept, with kind of proper, with kind of research and evidence-based data right through, engagement and consultation. We have people with behavior change specialisms right through to kind of delivery of a project. And we're doing a lot of work at the moment in the area of public engagement and consultation. And I suppose, this is an area where I think people are increasingly, governments, local authorities, private sector are increasingly understanding that, it's a very educated and aware citizenship in Ireland and across Europe. And, people understand, they want to understand what's being planned for their cities, for their countries, for their infrastructure, and they want to be involved, and they want to be involved early. They don't want to just be told, they don't want to be just shown some drawings. They want they want what's being provided to be for the need, the need to have been properly assessed, and then they want to be part of what is provided. And so, early engagement, genuine engagement in the plans for a city or for them, for their area, and then seeing how that has been developed, being kept informed, seeing where their viewpoint has been taken on board or not, and why. It's as we're seeing across Europe, and it's really a big week for France in this. It's a big challenge for governments and for civil society. As to, how do we engage, as a society, and how do we listen? How do we show we're listening? How do we show understanding? And it's so these skills, I think, are going to become I think they're going to become the norm, actually. And I think we are maybe a little bit advanced in that as a company, and we've been, I suppose, kind of at the forefront of that from quite early. But it's going to be a skill we're all going to need to develop, and not see as sort of like a little soft skill on the side. I suppose my own experience in project direction and management is, you have to be constantly communicating. It's all about communication. It's all about people. And if it was just as not in any way suggesting that construction or infrastructure design or any of those things are easy, but if it was just to design and build something, then it would, there should be no problems with delivering infrastructure anywhere. But it's not as simple as that. That's because there's people and places and societies involved. So yeah, I think what we're offering in MCO, I like to think certainly is unique. Certainly it feels like sometimes like we're a bunch of unique people working together, and And I love that, actually.
Yeah. So you just, while you were talking there, you mentioned your own background. Maybe could we delve into that a little bit more about how you came to be in the role you're in today, maybe what you were in before you joined EMCO as well?
Yeah, and I always people laugh when I say what I started at. My first love was English, and I studied English and medieval history, and so those were my subjects. History, I suppose, is always a subject that is endlessly interesting, and one can continue to learn from forever. I mean, I don't know. You could be doing a degree in history forever. And so I suppose words, and maybe that's where the interest in words and communication come from. I did a master's in history, but then I went on, really where my background in project management came from was, like many Irish people in the 90s, I went to work in London, and I worked for a museum exhibition and design company, which was fabulous, coming from a small country. And, and France, of course, has a history of this, and will be one of the other countries that has such a background in museum and exhibition design, and the history of Les Grands Projets, and the kind of cultural understanding built in to the DNA, I think, in France, that that these things are inherently important for a society. So I worked in London in that company, which was very specialized. It was world recognized as an exhibition and museum design company, and the company worked all over the world. So I was on the non-design side of the house. I was working with the director who did all of the new business development and scripting, and so there was maybe 3 of us on the kind of words and business side, and there was maybe 47 designers. So it was a fabulous introduction to a new world. And that is really where my skills in project management began. It was around the millennium, accountability and for money and for projects and timings. The whole actual profession of project management was beginning to move, to be recognized as a profession, and something that not only happened in construction, but also in programs of work and design and so on. So I was very lucky with that. It really was. I progressed very early, and I had responsibility early, and was involved in very big projects early in my career. And that was just, that was great luck. I want to go back to Ireland. It meant I had that experience behind me, and it would have been difficult to get that in Ireland in the early days. So that was my background. And I worked as well as working with EMCO, I worked for myself for a while. I think which was great. And it was a great number of years to spread my wings, I suppose. And I think it's working for yourself. You learn that often we're our own harshest boss. And I think that was a great lesson to learn. And also it was a great lesson in bringing in work, because when you're working for yourself, you are doing that yourself, and it really teaches you the importance of contacts, and the importance of maintaining relationships, and the importance of doing every job well, because your next project is based on the job you've just delivered, always, in my view.
That's really really interesting, and I can nearly see how your love of history and the roles in the museum, and then even the working for yourself, how that is all now combined to really influence what you see as the value in EMCO and where you're taking EMCO today. And I suppose when looking at now at your role in EMCO as managing director, and you talk there about the importance of bringing in work, maintaining relationships, what do you think is the most challenging aspect now in your current role?
Well, I took over as MD in 2018, and it was a management buyout, so we completed that shortly afterwards. So that's a very different role. And we're now about 33, 35 people in EMCO. So we're still very much a small company in terms of how small companies are defined. But that's a lot of people for the sector we're in, and a very diverse group of people. So I would say, that since 2018, we've had COVID, which of course was huge. We also had some personal challenges. We lost one of our colleagues in 2019. That was a very tough time. And then we had COVID. And I think so. What's been interesting is the challenge has been, I think, learning to manage the multidisciplinary team working cross-sectorally. So we have people don't work in silos, or they don't work in kind of the kind of traditional hierarchical kind of ways. They work in teams, and we form teams for every new project. So you can be working with different people, and you can have a different project lead and under a different director on maybe 3 different projects, and you might be working on 3 different projects. So there's a lot of management in that, in terms of resource management. Now it allows us to provide really good services to clients, because you're really matching the skill sets very precisely to client projects. But there's a lot behind the scenes. So that has been my focus, but actually I'm moving back out of that now. And I think the challenge of the role is that, to kind of move out of the organizational aspects of the managing, and just kind of that step back to look at where are we going. And I've really been kind of doing more and more of that this year, pushed, I have to say, very much by the senior people and the people who've grown up through the company, and the people who've joined, and the current suite of directors and associate directors, who are just, super bright and very ambitious for the company. They're very ambitious to work on projects that are going to make a difference, projects of scale, projects of pace, that they can, be part of change and see change delivered. And so it's wonderful, that being pushed by your own team to be better. And part of being better actually is getting out of the weeds and actually getting out there more. So that is, an aspect of the role that I'm kind of trying to focus on now. And look, that's really interesting, because one of the things I've always loved is actually being out and meeting people, the people who become your clients, and because we can't do it without them. MCO can't bring about change on its own. We're not a change. We have to. It's the match of the client and the company that brings about the magic.
But that must be quite a significant shift for you as well, particularly when you've come from an area where you were actually running your own business by yourself for a while as well, and then you've seen the growth of MCO through the years, and the success has been the involvement in the projects and knowing the detail and always doing that good job. So that must be quite a different step, or a gear to take, I suppose, to make sure that you're staying back to allow others to do that now.
In some ways it is, but the other, when I look back on and I say, in the early noughties, I was project director for maybe, so for several different, large scale construction projects on site. And I am not a construction person. Medieval history does not teach you how to put up a shelf. So, I had to have, enormous faith in the functioning of the whole team, and the functioning of everyone from the design team lead, whether it was a construction or a master plan, every person playing their part, and the excellence of the team. And I have that trust in the senior team here in MCO. And in fact, when I say even the senior team across the board, it's just an excellent group of people. They're very highly qualified and educated, but it's more than that. They have a lot of experience. So it's trust, but I have that confidence in the team. So it's not that hard. It's actually probably, just the barrier is always, as in almost everything in life, the barrier is within. The barrier is with me. Like Taylor Swift has taught us all, I'm the problem. So, it's to get past my own barriers, really, because I have that trust, and it's evidence-based trust, because the team is really superb. I'm so delighted to be part of that, and to be here with them, actually,
And you mentioned as well the way the teams all are structured together, with the kind of team by project, multidisciplinary, cross-sectoral. And I know that's a challenge that a lot of companies are facing at the moment as well, is that kind of resource management and capacity management. How do you get around that every day? Is it quite a lot of communication, organization?
Yeah, it is a lot of communication, because throw into the mix hybrid working, throw into the mix some remote working, throw into the mix flexible working in terms of hours during the day And then also flexible working in terms of number of days worked. So, we made a decision really post-COVID to really open up that flexibility, because we made the transition to home working, to remote working, with, so smoothly. We were up and running within 48 hours. We were, it was just phenomenal, actually. And that was hugely down to the way the team themselves worked together, but it was evidence really that people were able to work in that kind of flexible way. But it is difficult to organize, and it means a lot of communication. So we have as many companies I'm sure we have a kind of schedule of meetings through the month, and we try and kind of come at it from different perspectives. We have kind of 2 whole team meetings. We have a specific role in every project, which is the project lead, and that person may not be the director in charge of the project. They may not be even a director or associate director. They may be a senior project manager, but their role is really very specifically around the resourcing and the communication and the kind of granular responsibility, and you do need that if you're going to have a multidisciplinary team and working cross-sectorally. And then the other thing is, I suppose, that we're small enough where we know each other's skills, and that's a balance I'm hoping to keep. I mean, I do see us growing somewhat, but I think it's that we're small enough to know each other's experience and skills, so that people can always say, oh, actually, Simon Rafferty, I'm sure he's involved in an ACD commission that's looking at this with outside of work, or oh, actually, this person I remember that they did earth sciences in their original degree and have an interest in biodiversity, and actually did some work in a park, and that sort of so that there's that, so people know each other, and so it's creating the kind of other spaces for that to happen, and without it being kind of company events which people get kind of allergic to, and so so it is, but you have, so that's, I'm not going to say that we have it all worked out and that it's perfect. I think it's a challenge for everyone, and but it's a challenge we have to all embrace, because it's huge benefits, absolutely huge benefits. We're keeping people in the workforce, especially parents of young children who otherwise would not be able to stay in the workforce. We're, enabling people who have different work styles to really work in such a better way. I mean, for many of, I hated being chained to a desk from when I was in my earlier working life, and so I'm the first one to say, I think the flexibility is of huge benefit to business and to society.
And we talked there about the challenges in the role, but I'd also be interested to know, what are you most excited about, maybe to the end of this year or maybe in the next few years, for yourself and for EMCO?
I'm really excited to see the recognition coming into society. I mean, look, it's a strange time in the world, and I think it's important now more than ever to stay optimistic without being Pollyannish. But I am excited at what's beginning to happen around public engagement and consultation, I have to say. I'm also really excited to see the people who are coming into government departments and are coming into our local authorities and are coming into our, the kind of NGO and community sectors, who really understand what climate action and what needs to happen there. There's a real growth of, there's a lot of people emerging who are motivated by that, but who really have the skills to make things happen, and who are now positioned within central and local government to make sure that those things do happen, and who understand that it has to be innovative. It has to bring different parts of society together in order to change. But the change is the uncertainty in life, and so while we all resist it, we've all lived it, and it's amazing how quickly we've forgotten the lesson of COVID in many ways, that we can change, and that we're going to we can evolve and we can do things differently, and so it's kind of I'm excited to see that those two changes happening in Ireland, and I'm also excited to see and being part of the France-Ireland Chamber of Commerce has kind of opened my eyes to this a bit, to see the experience of change projects in Europe coming into Ireland. And I think, you know, through some of the French companies now based in Ireland or with offices here, that's bringing a lot of expertise to Ireland. But equally, I think Ireland has expertise to offer, yes, because we understand as a small country how to, I think one of our particular skills is how to work with other people, because we have to, you know, you can't just roll a road through someone who's going to turn out to be your husband or your wife's second cousin, you know. So we have, like many small countries, we have a role to play and a particular skill set, and a lot of expertise too. I think the days of looking to the UK for expertise, I hope, are beginning to be behind us. That was something that was a kind of feature for a long time, that, you know, the expert from the UK was always a better expert than the local person. I think there's an understanding across the workplace, private and public sector, that there's a hell of a lot of expertise in Ireland now.
Now, we just have time for one more question from me, and I'm very sorry to everybody listening because I've completely hogged the conversation with Della and not given any of you a chance to ask your questions. But if you do have questions, please pop them into the chat, and what we can always do is we can always follow up afterwards when we're sending out the recording with any of the answers to the questions as well. So Della, my final question to you as we wrap up is, as one that I always ask all of our guests on the Fireside Chat, is what's the one thing you know now that you wish you had known 5 years ago?
This is a good question, by the way, for any of you who end up doing this interview with Anya. I had to really think about this. I think, you know, 5 years is good. I was not very, just over 5 years ago, I took over the role, 5.5 years now, 6 years. I think it is to trust my instinct. You know, that's perhaps an overused piece of advice, but I think, you know, that's not to say your first reaction is always the correct one, but you know, having brought to bear your experience, having given something consideration, and if there's that feeling in your gut, I think it's really important not to ignore that, to just see it. And because sometimes we call it our instinct, and it's whatever is the thing for each individual that really makes them good at what they do, and how they, you know, and it's probably the reason death, you know, that they have really to be in the space that they're in. And so, you know, sometimes my what I call my instinct is a kind of creative left of field idea, and sometimes I will kind of think, oh no, that I need sort of more process behind that, or, you know, now that I'm managing director, I can't just go off on this wild goose chase. And actually often that is a really good instinct, a really good idea, or something that is you know, can really add to a project, or can add to a solution, or can, you know, or can be a new area of business to explore. So yeah, so that was my answer, Anya. Not very deep, but
no, but it's one that resonates. And actually, we've come to the end of our time now. So thank you so much, Della. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Pleasure to talk to you. Make it very easy. So for anybody else that gets asked to do this, I would really encourage you to say yes, because I'd be certainly interested to learn more about other people in this role.
And I also say I need to get you around a real fire sometimes, so I can follow up on so many aspects of the conversation that we didn't get to do today. But thank you all very much to everybody who joined us today. And I said, if you do have any burning questions, please pop them into the chat, and we'll make sure that we follow up with responses to those when we're sending out the recording afterwards. So thank you, Della, and thank you all.
Thank you all. Yeah. Merci.
Merci.